they said some people could see things from the past or from in the future. One of the elders one time sitting at my table told me, he said, our great-grandfathers and their grandfathers and their grandfathers are sitting here and having a meeting right here, right now. And our grandchildren, 7 generations down the line, are sitting here in the same place. That's the way it is, because in the spirit world there's no time element. They're all things that happen from the beginning of time till into infinity are happening right now. So sometimes in the place we're at, we're allowed to get glimpses of those things, of what it was like, what it is like in the past, what's happening 100 years, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Seeing people along these shores gathering berries and gathering bark from trees and doing things that are necessary for survival. And that's what I see a lot of times. I see the people that lived here in the past.
There's a misconception that this was paradise. In a way it was and is yet. But the Indian people, they still had hardship in their lives. They still was times of starvation. But yet there was such an abundance of things. If one place didn't produce something, they would always travel or migrate to another place that had those very same things. So in a way it was a hard life, but it was a good one. There's a difference between some tribes, and some are nomadic, some were farming villages. But for the Ojibways, we were mostly nomadic. They followed the seasons, the game, the animals, the berries. Starting the spring, summer, and fall. Spring, when the walleyes began to run and the fish began to run in the lakes, because it's at the end of the winter and you're depleted of a lot of food you've stored and dried up from the previous summer. And so that's why the Great Spirit sent these fish to spawn. Because the deer are not ready to be harvested because they're going to have babies, the fawns. And they just come through a hard winter and they don't have much meat on their bones either. And they're real stringy and they taste different because what they eat during the winter months. So then in the fall, the Indian people would leave their main villages and they would go and harvest wild rice on the different ricing lakes. Then in the winter time, they would slowly make their way to their winter camps for the hunting, the trapping, and the fishing through the ice. But that's when they would break the villages up. And like family groups would camp together, but they were separated by great distance so that each family would have a chance of survival. Because if they were in a big village, they would soon kill all the game and everything off. Now long ago, Indian people used to fast, dream or a vision, get a knowledge of the future. You see, that's why some of the Indian people, they accepted the Bible and Jesus Christ for his teachings. Because he was a man who went out and fasted for 40 days and nights to get himself closer to God and the Creator. Just what the Indian people were doing on their own, even before the European people come here. They were out there fasting to bring themselves closer to the Creator and to get a knowledge of what his plan was for them. And a person that fasts then, they could receive knowledge of things of the future. So apparently there was an old man living with his family on this Madeline Island, which we call Manawanakani, the place of the golden-breasted woodpecker. That's the name of that Madeline Island, which was formerly known as La Pointe, but that is the capital of the Ojibwe people. So there was this one man, he began to dream of seeing a cloud on the ocean like, but it was to the east, because he believed so strongly in that dream that he was given by the Great Spirit. He wanted to see if it was true. So he prepared for a whole year. Nice big canoe, got a bunch of furs that he trapped. Then when spring came, he said he was going to set off on this journey because of what he had seen in his dream, his vision. He began to paddle. And here he went all the way across Lake Superior. That's a big lake. He still began to go east. And there upon the water was that great big sailing ship, which that man seen in his dream, but as he seen it as a cloud, because of the white sails So his dream was actually a true one. He met the people from across the ocean.
That the people from across the ocean would eventually reach Wisconsin seemed obvious to the Ojibwe, for in this place where migration was as common as permanent residency, the Ojibwe themselves were recent arrivals. Just how recent is a matter of debate for Ojibwe historian Rick St. Germain.
Historians believe that the Ojibwe perhaps arrived here just before the turn of the 17th century. And the oral history indicates that the Ojibwe arrived maybe as early as the 1400s. I really don't take much of a position. I'm a little bit of a coward in that respect. I don't take a firm position on it. I've heard numbers of stories of spiritual leaders who transmit the history of the tribe, and the oral history is very exciting. And I grew up with the oral history. In fact, that's what got me so turned on to Ojibwe history. I believe that they arrived here very early. The region did have some resources that were valuable. There were trade routes established here. There were well-worn trails and pathways for the Ojibwe to simply come in and opportune themselves. There were plenty of waterways that they could use their canoes to transport and to move. But they were moving into somebody else's territory. It took quite a while to eventually settle Lake Superior, and they did so rather cautiously. They knew they were interlopers, and they had to make peace with the tribes that inhabited the region, both Nadwesu and the Fox, Outagamie, and the Menominee, and even further down, the Ho-Chunk. Because of the mobility, the Ojibwe here pretty much knew what was coming. They knew for sure that there were a strange human being that would arrive sometime soon. They had certainly heard enough stories from their relatives who were trading partners and who were making long-distance voyages, which was fairly common. But I don't think they knew or they could appreciate or understand the full magnitude of what the fur trade would do to them. And of course, once the fur trade and the market for the fur-bearing animals arrived, all hell broke loose. It changed the Ojibwe forever.